Right, well, the plan today is to make a sort of Christmassy type fruit cake, but it's going to be done the vegan way and trying to keep it as healthy as possible. Now, I guess the first thing I should tell you about is the ingredients that we need. I've already got these measured out as best as I can. About a cupful of well, it can be any general purpose flour. This happens to be a malted flour with bits of malted grain in, because I'm hoping that'll give a bit of extra taste to it. The bulk of this is nuts and fruit. Now I've got 3 cups full. This is the cup that I use. It says on it 1 cup, so it must be right. And I fill up 3 of those with dried fruit and 3 with various nuts. Now the dried fruit that I've used today is unsulfured apricots. They're really quite nice, much better than those orangey things that have got sulphur on them for preservative. I just had 1 or 2 dates left over, so they're in there. Got some nice big fat raisins that I've chopped up, and I've got a little bag of dried cherries in there, so it'll be nice. Now that's quite expensive, I suppose, the dried fruit. You could have a real cheap version. You could get a whole load of sultanas, put those in, but I think it's better to have something a bit different. And in the nuts, well, that's even more expensive than the dried fruit, of course, because nuts are generally quite expensive. I've found one of the best places to buy them is at Asda. You might have seen one of my earlier videos showing buying nuts from Asda. And of course the dried fruit, most of that comes from Daily Bread. And again, you might have seen an earlier video about the Daily Bread shop. Great place. So the nuts, again, you could do a cheap version. You could get some pretty cheap and nasty peanuts, but I think that would spoil the taste. Now in here I've got cashew nuts, flaked almonds, whole almonds chopped up, lots of Brazil nuts, some cashew nuts, so quite a big selection there. And I've also got a little bag of seeds to sort of make up the 3rd cup. Now those seeds are things like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, I think there's a bit of sesame, a bit of linseed, all sorts of interesting things like that. But basically 3 cupfuls of nuts, chopped up of course, and 3 cupfuls of chopped dried fruit. We'll need a bit of mixed spice. I tend to be quite generous with the mixed spice. Again, you can see Daily Bread Cooperative, great place to go. We'll need a little bit of dash of salt, dash of baking powder, dash of soda. Now you're probably wondering, if this is going to be vegan, what do I use instead of eggs? Well, I've got prepared here some mashed stewed Bramley cooking apples and a nice organic banana mashed up. Now as a general rule, 1 egg would be about 1/4 of a cupful of those. So I think probably a whole cupful of this would be about right. There's probably a little bit more than a cupful in here, but I think it'll add to the taste. And I shall just put a little bit less water in. If I had 3/4 of a cup of that, I'd have to top up with 1/4 of water to mix up the flour a bit. I might still have to put a bit of water in, but we'll see how it goes. So let's get started then. I'll start by putting in the dried fruit. Incidentally, scrubbed up my hands, took off the ring, took off the watch before I began any of this. We don't want the dirt getting in there, do we? Put the flour in. Where's my spatula? I think I'll give that a mix round just to get that all nicely coated up. Oh, I didn't put this in. I need half a teaspoon of the baking soda. There we go. And a little bit less than that of baking powder. I think the two react and help what there is of the cake to rise. Most of it, of course, is fruit and nuts, so it's just the flour that rises. Right, let's add the nuts to that now. Way, great. You see the flour's got quite lost in all that. Just a teeniest bit of salt. It's probably not really even necessary, but just a teeny bit. Of course, if you've got a really sweet tooth, you could put in another half cup of brown sugar or something. I'm not going to do that. I have done it before, and it's turned out a bit too sweet for my liking, because I've got all that dried fruit in there. I really can't see why you'd want any sugar on top of that. So that's the dried fruit and the nuts and the flour all getting mixed in. Probably might be an idea to get my hands in there in a bit. Now I'm going to add some mixed spice as well. This might not be to everyone's taste. Probably 1 teaspoon would be enough for most people, but I like to taste it, so hopefully that's enough. Let's mix that in too. Yeah, smells good. I think it probably could have had a bit more, but I suppose other people might want to try it and they might not like too much mixed spice. Right, so I'm going to put the wet ingredients in now. I've also got some almond essence. You could use vanilla essence. I think I've used vanilla essence in the past, but I want to try almond today, see if it makes a difference. So I'm going to put a teaspoon of that in to my wet mix. Put that in. Before I started this, I did turn the oven on to approximately 190 degrees. If you've got one of those old-fashioned ones that says Fahrenheit, I think that's 375 Fahrenheit. It's not going to rise a huge amount, obviously not with all that weight in it, all those nuts and fruit. So when it's finished, it is, as I say, quite an expensive cake, and you don't want to be eating it all at once. So what I tend to do is just slice it up into smaller portions and put the portions in the freezer and just take one out as you need it. You can also sort of use it rather not like a cake so much, but rather like one of those bars that you buy, naked bars, that sort of thing, that just take somewhere for a snack if you're going to need some food. Yeah, I think that's going to be all right. Don't think it needs to be any wetter. Ideally it needs to be about 13 inches by 9 inches, the pan, for this amount of cake. Maybe I might have to go and buy a bigger pan. Still, as I say, it's not going to rise too much anyway. Be nice if it did, but I don't think it will. I've got to squash it down. Right, now the squashing down bit. Didn't need to get my hands in there in the end, did I? And it managed to mix it all up quite nicely with the spatula. Anyway, that's got that all mashed down. There, finally a bit of fingers being used. And what we need to do now is just rinse my hands. Is just to get a bit of grease proof but put over the top of that. Never make these packets good for cutting up paper, do they? It's the cling film that really drives me nuts. Right, I'll just chop that off there. Pop that on there to stop it all burning. And as I say, I'm going to have a good half an hour in the oven. So we'll come back in half an hour, see what it's looking like. It's had its half an hour. Need to take the protection off. It's looking alright. Just give it just a few more minutes. Turn it down a bit. Okay, so it's had just about 5 more minutes with the cover off. And take it out now. Yes, I think that'll do. Now I just need to let that cool down for an hour or so before I try and tip it out and cut it, otherwise it'll all fall to bits. Right, here we are then, more or less cooled down, just ready to cut it up. Slip it onto there. And let's see what it looks like. Looks pretty good to me. Let's have a look at one. Oh, look at that. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? Bit difficult to call it a cake, I suppose, but there we are. Yum yum.